I thought what was important, there's a lot of speculation around certain religious groups and churches. Some obviously are quite secular and quite private, and in the case of the Jehovah's Witnesses, very, very private, a church or organization. And so with that, with their privacy and their sort of seclusion from everyday life, people tend to think up things about them or make up stories about them, and it's not always based on fact. So as I was listening to Maria's story, I found myself wanting to go and do research around the actual church, what they stood for, what they were about, and to give her story context, and to dispel negative connotations about the church, and to dispel this whole thing that it's a cult, because really when you get into the story, it's not a cult. It is an established church. It's been around for a very long time. It is a Christian-based faith, but they do have some very peculiar practices, and for some, and particularly I think Maria, in the book, she does say that some of the practices are cult-like. But that does not say that just because they are very private in how they do things and like to remove themselves from everyday life, that they are as such. But they do have some odd practices, and some of them I would say definitely border on cult-like practices, and that's what makes them a little scary, and certainly from Maria's view, incredibly ominous.
No, there is a huge level of facade, once they start knocking on the doors, they almost look so inviting because they, as families and children, they look so happy and they look so in a controlled environment, and that you would be entering a church that's safe and almost shepherding, as they call it. However, it's far from the truth. And once you actually join and you're baptized, you're literally stuck. And you've got a lot to give up. In fact, they engulf your world with clients that are Jehovah's Witnesses, and your family is Jehovah's Witnesses. And through the years, they definitely push the fact that you can't socialize or have friends out of the truth, out of the network of Jehovah's Witnesses. And so it's almost they encompass your whole life, and when you get to the point where you start feeling and your gut starts telling you something's wrong, there's no way to really get out. You've got to really give up, you've got to start fresh. You've got to give up your family, you've got to give up the only network of friends that you have, and you also, to society, you've already set the motion of looking weird and standing out and bullying and all the rest. And now you've got to try and break that barrier where people need to somehow believe that this is actually happening deep down inside the church. And no one is talking, everyone is silenced. There's a lot of people, I know a lot of people that have gone through very similar cases, but they're just too scared and they just cannot give up their family. They don't see an out, and that's what the whole book is about. Yes, yeah.
The act of disfellowshipping is what really differentiates them from your sort of mainstream Christian-based faiths. I mean, if you look on paper between a Jehovah's Witness church and, say, for example, the Catholic faith, they are both well-established, respected churches in their own right. They have a strong patriarchal leadership. They all, they believe in the Bible, etc., etc. So on paper, one would say, okay, one is a church and the other is a church, etc., etc. But when you start to scratch a little bit beneath the surface and you start to observe some of their slightly more bizarre practices, it is the practice of disfellowshipping that really differentiates them from what one would say a sort of normal church. And it's that act of disfellowshipping when you are excommunicated from the church, from family, from friends, and you are literally tossed out on the street.
They stop your clients that are Jehovah's Witnesses coming to your business. So you start hitting rock bottom financially, support emotionally. Everything is literally, it's like a scissors to a ribbon. It's literally cut off. And they stand by that. And that's because they want to teach you a lesson. And that's that if you do anything wrong in Jehovah's eyes and in God's eyes, you are basically taught a vital lesson to never do that again. And so they feel disassociation and punishing is the best way for that. And they've got so many rules, and I would say they're not balanced rules. I would look at myself as a very balanced person, and I stand by my morals. But there's certain things in life, and as life is changing and graduating into a new era where, being gay is accepted, and people that have that interest in that sector, and they want to be involved and be happy in their lives, following whatever their beliefs are. I think that it is completely traumatizing to see what they put people through in the church that are not allowed to voice their beliefs and their loves, and I think that that's very sad.
And yet they speak of it as a loving practice, spiritually, which is so ironic in so many ways. So they, I think, almost cover up the act of excommunication. And this lack of freedom of movement within the religion is what differentiates them. I mean, in any other Christian-based faith, you can leave, not go to church on Sundays, come back 2 years later, maybe stray from your faith, go back to your faith. There's no big stick above your head. Here, there is not just a big stick.
No, there's a file on your life. If you don't punch in a certain amount of field service hours, they pull you in. If you wear a top that is literally just showing the cleavage line of your breasts, they pull you in. And they use it as in to basically, well, with no uncertain words, to say that we are the cause why the elders are looking and gravitating towards your braces, because it's your fault. Instead of thinking the other way around, where if you are a holy man and if you are so religion-based and you represent the church and you're supposed to be an elder, you should not even be looking there. So I definitely am against any kind of provocative dressing, but we are women and we are allowed to show our skin, and I truly feel that everyone is allowed to embrace their body. But that is also another sector where they bash you down and they make you feel that nothing you ever do, you will never get to a point, even if you stick to the rules, you will never get to a point where it is satisfactory for the church. You are constantly grueling and thinking and personal study, and they monitor how much you read the Bible and how many answers you speak within the church on Sundays and Thursdays. It is truly traumatizing to even go through that, especially when you're young.
And also, I don't know if you want to speak of the practice of the 2-witness rule. That again is very specific to the Jehovah's Witness Church. And again, another sort of cult-like behavior. Not that they are a cult, but it's this cult-like behavior that gives them this sort of aura where people want to learn more about them, they think up things about them, but one needs to know and understand the facts so that you can make up your own mind about this church. But the 2-witness rule was a very unusual, it was certainly an education piece for me, but I'm sure Maria can explain it a little better. It is in the book, obviously.